Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Inside the Birds TV Ask ITB live stream. I'm Jeff Mosher. That's Adam Kaplan. The show, of course, is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, and I look forward to this. Last week, we did an interview with Merrill Reese. By the way, it got tremendous feedback. If you have not seen our ITB TV interview with Merrill Reese last week, he took some awesome strolls down memory lane with Adam and myself on some really, amazing moments in Eagles history, but also he's had a chance to interact with Nick Sirianni more than we have, and had some really interesting stories to share about both Nick and then also his interactions with Doug Peterson. So make sure you check that out. But it's back to Ask ITB live stream tonight. So Adam, let's have a little fun with this, right? We'll take some questions, but as we inch closer to a podcast we're going to do soon about stories, I'm not going to say we're going to give all our good stories out tonight, but I encourage anybody to ask us a question about, it doesn't have to be about the cornerback battle or the left tackle, anything you got for me and Adam about being Eagles reporters or things we've encountered in our career, because why not? Let's open this up and get creative and have some fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, I cover 32 teams, not just one. So if you have a question about any other team, I'm happy to answer it, because I've been making a ton of calls this week. Just to start getting an idea of how players are doing in OTAs, because you don't want to go crazy with the OTA stuff. But I'm just trying to get an idea of what kind of start players are getting off to, what their learning is, because OTAs is about learning. There's very little competition. It's just about the learning phase. Mm-hmm. They try to take what they learn and getting into training camp.
All right, you know what? I'm going to start off with the first question based on what you just said. I would like to know from you, give me three teams based on kind of what you've been hearing around the league or just talking to people, three teams that you think are going to be better than they were last year. Don't forget the Eagles. We're going to just, move on to just for a minute. Give me three teams you think are going to be vastly improved.
The Bears, who were 8-8, who backed into the playoffs. They shouldn't have gotten in. They're a bad team. Mm-hmm. Defense was bad. Now they have this weird deal with Eddie Goldman, who opted out last season. He was expected back. They're expecting to be at the mandatory camp, and he didn't show up. And they Bears say they're unexcused absences. So I don't know what's going on. It ended today. So all the mandatory camps around the NFL ended today. I don't get it. Mm-hmm. Viking coaches already left. They're already on vacation. So and some actually added yesterday, by the way. Some didn't even have the third day of the mandatory OTA. Denver did not, apparently. They sent out an email earlier today. I would say Chicago. I would say Jacksonville. How could they be any worse than 1-15? So, yeah, you like that?
I still think that whole experiment's going to blow up pretty quickly with Urban Meyer. So I don't know how vastly improved.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Look. I mean, how many? He's already had three coaches that were part of his staff that are gone. I question how long he's going to be able to coach in the league. I question how he's going, much like Nick Saban, who is a great coach, great college football coach, struggled with the whole my way or the highway thing in Miami, dealing with grown men. I don't know about this, man. Trent Baalke being his GM, are they all going to be able to agree? I mean, a lot of strong personalities there. I just don't see it working.
That's true. Yeah, Trent had his issues with Chip Kelly. That's been well documented. Mm-hmm. It's a very good point you make. You cannot underestimate that. I'm glad that they have Tom Gamble, who will sort of be the sort of go-between.
Yeah, I'm sure he's like, I've been in this role before.
Well, yeah, he had to do it with Harbaugh and Baalke and San Fran. So
right, he's also here in Philly with Chip and Howie.
Right.
So yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Yep. And then the third team, I would say the Jets. Again, how could they be any worse than 2-14? Now, Zach Wilson, I'm not sure about. I like his upside. I like the talent. I just don't like the fact that he did not get a lot of starts at the collegiate level. That would concern me. Mm-hmm. So that's always a concern. I remember Bill Polian telling me when we work at ESPN together. I don't know what the stat was. He just wrote off he just knew that over the history of the National Football League, going back at least 50 years, for having might be less than 14 starts. I don't know what the stat was. The lack of success for quarterbacks who had so few starts in the National Football League, who only started 15 games or less at the collegiate level, it's staggering. Mm-hmm. Which is why he thought it was a mistake for Trubisky to come out, and he was right for that 17 draft. Okay. Boy, the Bears. You and I worked together for that draft. I'll never forget it. Remember how we were fumbling? We're like, what? We were like, what? What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Which would be a precursor to a couple of Eagles drafts going forward, like last year.
Well,
like,
it was crazy. So the crazy thing about that draft, so Jeff and I were working for 97.5 The Fanatic, and by the way, they want us back for a little bit of a minor announcement. They want us back for the fall, so we expect to be back there, but no deal done, but we'd like to go back there, so we'll see what happens. So we're working for the Fanatic. We're at that draft in Philly, and the Bears trade up, and we're like, who are they trading up for? Like,
right.
I didn't know. Nobody knew. Ryan Pace kept it quiet.
Right. And I remember thinking, why, if you're already at 3, why are you trading up to 2 for a quarterback if you don't think the team ahead of you is going to take that quarterback?
Well, they thought Cleveland was going to trade up.
Other teams were going to jump up.
Yeah, he thought Cleveland was going to trade up, and they weren't. He had bad information. And
right.
Pace is a decent GM, but that was just an absolute whiff. But, man, the Bear fans are loving Ryan Pace all of a sudden because they love Justin Fields. The Bears love Justin Fields.
Well, yeah. Some might argue that when you're trying to save your job, it helps you to draft a quarterback who may need a year or two before.
Yeah, that's true. That thought you just shared has been shared to me by many personnel people in the NFL. That's why.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right. So you said the Jets, the Jaguars, and who was the other team that you mentioned?
Bears, Jaguars, and
Bears.
Jets.
Okay. Bears, Jaguars, and Jets. All right. What did you think, by the way, of Travis Kelce saying he thought that the Cleveland Browns are right there with the Chiefs as far as, talent and ability? I was a little taken by surprise by that.
Here's the thing. The Browns offensive line is top 3. They're phenomenal. They were so good last season. Baker Mayfield, I know he's had an up-down career, but he had his best years of pro. Stefanski manages him very well. He understands what he is and isn't as a quarterback. He knows you don't want to put too much on his plate. It worked out very well. They've got these 2 excellent running backs. They're a heavy 12 personnel team. They get Odell Beckham Jr. back this season from his ACL injury. We'll see how he does. They are a high turnover team on defense. They create turnovers, but they give up too many plays. I'm a little bit concerned about their D tackle position. Malik Jackson is there. Remember, they cut Sheldon Richardson, who's back with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Old friend Damian Square, your guy, Mosher. Damian Square signed with the
Great
Browns.
Guy, by the way. Awesome dude.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's back there.
Okay. I feel like I can understand where Kelsey's coming from as far as them being they're strong in the trenches, D-line, O-line. Odell Beckham Jr. will come back. It's not like they're the most fiercest offense, but if you're telling me that Baker Mayfield is going to be 35 to 40% improved from what he was last year, and they were a playoff team last year, all right, maybe I could buy them as a pretty legit team in the AFC. I just don't know if I can. I'm not ready to live in a world, Adam, where we say the Browns and the Jets are really improved. They're going to be, both better teams this year. One of those shoes is going to drop.
The Jets will be better in 2-14. They'll be a 5 to 7 win team, but they're going to be better.
That would be.
But the Browns,
better,
to be better 11-5 is going to be very, very difficult.
Right.
The Steelers, I think Ben Roethlisberger will be better. They'll throw the ball downfield more. They just didn't do it last year because he was coming back from the elbow surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore's going to be good.
I'd watch Cincinnati. Out for those Chargers. I think the Chargers have a chance to be pretty good.
That's my. I don't want to say breakout team. That's my sleeper team this season. I come up with one every season. Sometimes they work out. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'm way off. I'm like 1 year too early. But I like the Chargers. Yes, I agree with you.
All right, let's get to some questions. First, remind everybody, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code ITB when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. That's using the promo code ITB on the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. So our first question comes from Evan Altier, and he asks, can Travis Fulgham put together a full season like those 4 games that he had? Now, I can't, in my mind right now, he led the NFL in, I believe, in receptions or receiving yards, and
receiving yards for 4 weeks. Yeah.
Right. It was a lot. I don't know if you extrapolated that over 16 games. That might be a little much to ask for Travis Fulgham now to lead the NFL next year in receiving yards. But I think what you and I I'll add to this. I think Travis Fulgham has really good natural talents and natural abilities that we saw as far as route running, high pointing, catch radius, things that really make tall, physical receivers like him who have good quickness stand out. But in the NFL, even the best receivers are always encountering some kind of adversity, right? I mean, nothing's very easy for anybody in the NFL. and he needs to be able to deal with adversity and treat the game like it is his baby, and want and really strive to be a great player in order to be able to stay on the field and show us that. So it's hard to answer Evan's question without knowing what's going on up here for Travis. But I do believe he has the natural abilities to be one of the better. I don't know if I'm going to say he's a top 5 or top 10 receiver, but he certainly has natural abilities that remind me of some of the best receivers in the league, what they do.
He's got good size. He's a good route runner. He runs well enough. He's physical. You don't do what he did over a 4-week period and not be a talented player. Mm-hmm. We outlined first, before anyone had any idea, that he had some maturity issues last season. Jeff just did a beautiful job of explaining it. You couldn't have said it any better. I think you really nailed it.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add is he's got the ability to be really good. And we saw it. And that wasn't a fluke, folks. Talking to my Lions source, the coaches wanted him off the team there. They don't want to coach him anymore because he had some entitlement issues. I don't know how else to say it. He thought because he did well in practice, he should be getting a certain amount of reps, and he wasn't, and he didn't handle it well. I don't know if I don't remember. This is a year ago, last fall. I was just digging into what happened with him and why did he keep getting, he got cut by the Lions twice and the Packers once. Like, I was at practice, Jeff. I remember I was at training camp, and he was killing them at 101s down the right sideline. I was like, okay, who is this kid? Travis Fulgham. I don't know anything about him.
Right.
And we would see him in the regular season. I'm like, holy smokes. And we had our friend Greg Cosell. We talked to Greg about him, and he raved about him. And when he passes the Cosell test, probably a pretty talented player, but it's up to him. I'll be honest with you. If they trade Ertz, which is certainly a good possibility, but it's not a lock. Not a lock. But if they trade Ertz, I believe they're going to be 11 personnel. Way more than they have in the last. Obviously, how could they not be more in the last 2 years?
Right.
But yeah, and that means Fulgham will be on the field a lot.
Yeah, and one more thing on just his natural talents. I also find that for someone who has not played the game for a long time, we've talked about his upbringing overseas and playing different sports. He was not a guy who like many kids who grew up in Texas and they live and breathe football since they're 4 years old, right? For someone who went to James Madison, who was I think a 6th-round pick and kind of knew, you can tell he's a very smart kid and even picks up concepts very easily. There was a certain play in our tape study last year that we observed where he was lined up in the slot against the Steelers, against Steven Nelson.
Oh, he killed
ironically.
him. Oh.
And he beats him to the outside, not just on size or anything, but what he does is his stem, the early part of his route, he leans into Steven's leverage to get Steven kind of turned one way and then put the move on him outside so that Steven had to get completely turned around. And when you turn a cornerback around, you've lost him. And he was able to catch the ball at the sideline. That's not something that's just every receiver does really well. In fact, a lot of receivers don't. So him to understand that nuance and subtlety of how to play into a cornerback's rib cage and then, quickly break to the outside and get that guy kind of off balance, that's stuff that makes me really believe that if he can put it together, he can be the X receiver for this team and a pretty good one if the offense is good. But we're far from that. The development has to happen. We hope these coaches can bring it out, and we hope that Travis Fulgham can take that opportunity seriously and seize it.
Yeah. So as you're saying, and again, you said it very well, this kid's got a lot of natural ability, and a lot of his future is going to be up to him, not up to the coaches. Mm-hmm. The coaches could only do so much. There becomes a point where it's up to the player to do his job. It's up to him. I don't say sky's the limit, but he could be a really good player. Mm-hmm. And I believe what Nick Sirianni said was very telling. This is going back a while because he kept being asked about X and Z receivers. I could tell you this has come up at least 3 times this offseason with me. And these coaches keep saying, man, you're old school, man. We don't really we just look at outside. Who's going to line up on the left and the right side, and we're going to move our guys.
Right.
It's very rare for an X receiver not to be moved around very much. It's rare that they stay static.
Right. So
I don't worry about him being Fulgham being X. I just worry about him being one of their top 3 receivers. He should be, barring something unforeseen.
Absolutely. All right, next question comes from Marquise Irvin. He asks us, what's our favorite behind-the-scenes moment from the day that the Eagles won the Super Bowl? I'll start with you. Do you have a favorite behind the scenes moment?
This is funny. This is funny because I've told this before, I think, but I'll just repeat it. And I kind of regret it. But so the night before the Super Bowl, I don't go to the game unless I have to work. I'd rather watch it at home alone. I like watching the game. I don't like watching with a crowd because you can't. I don't like going to a sports bar because you can't hear. I'm not a fan, so I don't need to pump my fist and all that stuff. But so I wanted to watch at home. So what I did is I took the last flight out from Minneapolis that night. Boy, it was cold as hell that Saturday night. It's me, Sean Landetta, and Andrew Brand. There's like 10 people on the flight. We all had our own row, and we all, because what the hell, we might as well talk. It's a 3-hour flight. So Landetta had a funny, and he was right. I think he was right. I remember Sean, he didn't want to take anything away from the Eagles, but he said, you know what? Everything went well for this football team. Every free agent move, everything could go well, went well. Even when things didn't go well with injuries, they somehow had somebody replace them, and every move they made turned out to be right. And that he just wanted to say, look, sometimes because he's a Super Bowl winner before with the Giants. So,
right.
He knows what it's like. And there's some luck involved, but got to give Eagles personnel staff credit, obviously, that year. But flying back the night before, you know what? I should have been there. Being a Philadelphian, I should have stayed. Oh, well.
Yeah, you should have. By the way, you said it was cold that night flying back. It was cold the next day. It was cold the day before. It was cold the whole week after. It's pretty cold there anyway. Yeah. I went downtown. Yeah. I've got 2 really interesting stories.
Good.
I went down. This is more of a Minneapolis kind of story. I went downtown to do the day before the Super Bowl to experience the event. Right, my brother-in-law was there, so I hung out with him, his friend. We went to bars, and I kind of just like took in the. I was working for FanRag at the sports.com at the time, so my responsibilities weren't like when I used to work for CSN Philly, and I had to be working 24/7, 365. So I was able to take in the events that they had going on downtown. Somewhere along the line, I'm on the train back to our hotel near the Mall of America, and I get a direct message from Facebook on my phone from somebody I don't even know, asking me if my name is Jeff Mosher and if I'm missing a credit card. I looked in my wallet, and sure enough, I'm missing my credit card. And they said, well, we found it here downtown Minneapolis.
Oh, my God.
If you come, and I said, I'm on the train. I can hop back and come. And they said, sure, we'll meet you there. The nice couple, it was a man and woman, nice couple, met me in downtown Minneapolis. No matter, it was free, so cold at them.
What are the chances?
That I was trying to communicate with them. Where are you at? And I had to take my gloves off to text, and I would have to put them right back on.
I tell you.
Do you think that happens in Philly?
No, here's what happened.
Do you think it happens?
Wow, good. So you got your wallet.
I got it back.
My wallet's gone.
Someone took the time to find me on Facebook and send me a message and wait for me to get back. That Minneapolis nice is a real thing there.
Here, I have a similar story in terms of the cold. So remember the Eagles had a playoff game at Minnesota. I'm thinking 08, 09? Is that sound
they
right?
beat New York and then went and played Minnesota, right? They beat Minnesota, then played New York. This is 08.
Okay. I was in Minnesota. Now I've experienced cold before. It was so cold. I was staying in downtown Minneapolis that what I would do, because you go to bars at night, just to stay warm, I'd go outside. The wind would hit me, and I go in a bar to literally defrost. It was so cold because let's say I had to walk 2 miles or something because you couldn't drive. I would just walk into a building and get warm, and then go to the next one. This took me like an hour to go, which should have been 15 minutes because I just couldn't walk. It was so damn cold, and the wind was so strong. Mm-hmm. Oh, I learned my lesson. Never go to Minneapolis unless you absolutely have to.
Unless you have to, right. So as far as behind the scenes when they win, so I go to the locker room. I wanted to write a scene piece. I wanted to not just write a game story.
Shit, I don't know this stuff. I didn't know you were there. Okay.
Yeah. I was there. Nice. And I wanted to write a story about what goes on after this team breaks its 52-year drought of winning a Super Bowl, right? And first one. So instead of game story, I wanted what was going on. So I go into the Eagles locker room after doing just a few of the press conferences, and I go in. And of course, Meek Mill is just blasting as loud as possible, and everybody's dancing and going crazy. Not everybody's in there yet. It's still kind of like half filled. So I'm just walking around. I'm not even asking any questions yet. I'm letting the guys kind of party. Fletcher Cox has the cigars lit up. Michael Kendricks, they're all dancing. They got music playing. And then gradually more and more guys
Jeffrey
start
did,
to
didn't
funnel
he?
in. Jeffrey comes in, Howie, and then the music gets louder. Meek gets louder. Like a mosh pit all of a sudden develops, and they're just like,
wow,
they're
cool.
you know, dreams and nightmares is just blaring. So I took my phone out and I videoed the scene, right? And anybody who's watching wants to check it out, just Google or search on Twitter at Jeff Mosher NFL and Meek Mill, and it'll probably come up under top or recents, right? And you'll see the video of just how crazy it was. And this is my first Super Bowl. I don't go to every – I hadn't been to a Super Bowl before. So it's not only my first Super Bowl, it's my first Super Bowl winning locker room. And I'm taking it all in going, this is the biggest party I've ever – this is amazing. And I think the Patriots, they've won 6 of these. I can't imagine they do this every single time. It's amazing. Everybody wins a Super Bowl, right? So after the whole scene, after it's crazy, after all the media leaves, I'm on the media bus on the way back to the hotel, and I'm sitting next to, man, it's either Jenny Vrentas, right, from Sports Illustrated, or Lindsay Jones from, I think she's at The Athletic now, but she was at USA Today before. I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
And I was like, man, that was a pretty interesting scene in there. And she says to me, I've covered the last 15 Super Bowls, and I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'm like, oh, what, really? She's like, I have never seen a team party like that ever in my entire life. She's like, that was the craziest scene ever.
This is in the locker room, or is this at the Super Bowl party?
Yeah, no, the locker room. This is the locker room. Still at the stadium.
That is crazy. Was it Jeffrey dancing? Was Jeffrey dancing? I remember
I think his dancing was after the Atlanta win or the
okay.
I mean, he may have danced that night in the locker room too. I don't know. Doug got down.
Did he?
But here I was thinking, like, this is how Super Bowl champions party. And Lindsay's like, no. This is how the Eagles Super Bowl champion party. This is like a party on steroids.
I mean, they had a great, I'll tell you what, that 17 team, the locker room, I remember talking to the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They had, this is a really good nugget. One of the coaches told me that you knew things were going well for Carson Wentz and the team when they trade for J.J. And J.J. had issues with Adam Gase, and he could be a jerk. I mean, he had an attitude. Okay.
Yeah.
Say. That Gase wanted him off the team. He was his best behavior. When you're playing with a superstar quarterback, his coach said you never want to bring the team down. When you know that you're an elite football team, nobody will say a damn thing to upset the apple cart.
Right.
No, there are no leaks. No one's questioning anything. But, man, when things are not good, it all comes out. Isn't it funny how that works?
It is quite amusing how that works. But, yeah, no, that was I think Sean
cool.
Landetta may have
had this.
Landetta probably had a good point about just sometimes everything breaks your way and goes right, and you have that magical year. And for the Eagles, unfortunately, it was 52 years in the making, but that was one heck of a celebration.
And it was so unexpected because they had a losing record the year before, which is like it's happened before.
Right.
Very few times has a team gone from having a losing record to winning the whole thing the next year. It's just so hard to do.
All right. Make sure you see our friends at Deal Dash. You can download the app or go to dealdash.com. They are the best online penny auction you'll find. You can get great stuff at discount prices. So make sure you use the promo code ITB to get yourself some free bids. Start bidding on Deal Dash. Use that promo code ITB. Next question comes from Anish David, and he wants to ask us about the Colts, really, Adam, because we were talking about other NFL teams before. And he says, with the level of play in the AFC, do you think that the Colts will make the playoffs? And I assume he asked that because of the Carson Wentz. That's really based more on playing time, not playoffs, but still snaps. He says thinking the Colts pick may be higher than we think. Like,
I see. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would say the 7 teams in the AFC that'll get in will be Buffalo 1, Baltimore 2, Cleveland 3, Pittsburgh 4.
Well, someone's got to make it from that AFC South.
Yeah, Tennessee 5, the Chiefs 6.
Did you say Kansas City 6? And
6, and then one more. Probably the Colts. Who could be the next?
I don't know, but I think you're doing this dangerous thing of all the teams that made it last year, because there's going to be 3 or 4.
I'm going by what the rosters look like. I'm just going by.
But usually there's 3 or 4 teams per conference that didn't make it the year before.
Right. It could be the Chargers getting that 7th team. Could be the Colts. That's a great question. Because if the Chargers come through as that sleeper team, you might be right. That pick might be a little better. Sure.
Now think about the Titans, though, right? I know that they look really good right now because they got Julio Jones, but they did lose Arthur Smith, and that's someone that you reported was, as you spoke to people around the league, probably the number one off-season coaching candidate, right? But like the league was really fond of
He was
Arthur
the guy.
Smith.
He was. I strongly suspect him, the Eagles head coach. Had the Eagles been willing to wait, they were not. My understanding was they were blown away by the guy,
right?
And they had to get. I'm not exactly sure what the issue was, but they had to wait. And Sirianni was on their radar, and he blew them away. And they decided it wasn't going to be Josh McDaniels. So it's just kind of funny how things work out. But
they also lost Jonnu Smith, they lost Corey Davis, they lost Adoree Jackson. So I know that they bring in Julio, and the assumption is this is great, but they've had some significant departures this offseason too.
I could tell you that they think that Julio Jones is an upgrade over Corey Davis. I would probably agree with that, but Julio's got a big injury history.
Right.
You make a great point on Jonnu Smith. That is a major loss for them. They didn't make him an offer because they knew he was going to get a monster one, and they correctly predicted that. They did draft Farley. We know about his injury history. Bud Dupree coming back to an ACL. Janoris Jenkins is 33. Adoree Jackson really didn't play for them last season due to a knee injury. Boy, what a bad contract he signed for. Great contract for the player, bad for the Giants. I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Well, yeah.
Gina Gautry, who I like, formerly of the Colts and Raiders, is an underrated D lineman. But yeah, their defense, I don't think is going to be very good. Tennessee, so I still think they get in. I do. I think it's so I think it's either Titans or Colts win it, and the loser of that division, it's going to be the last wild card will be either that AFC South team or the Chargers.
Yeah, I feel like the Titans are a boom or bust type of team. I feel like at some point, with all of the mileage on Derrick Henry, who has managed to avoid injury, you never know. And I do feel like Ryan Tannehill, we've seen play well, but I'm not sure he can play any better. In other words, I think what you've seen the last 2 years is his ceiling. He's had a bad playoff game. He's had a good playoff game. I just don't know that he's that guy that's going to get them any further than they've already gotten. But
he's a guy, right?
You may have gotten the most out of him.
Right. And he's a guy in that what you were saying is you do not want him throwing the ball a lot. He's kind of like Kirk Cousins. Jared Goff and some other quarterbacks, don't ask him to throw the ball up because the more you ask him to throw it, the more they break down mentally. That was Ryan Tannehill's problem with the Dolphins. So many bad mistakes. It's kind of like with Ryan Fitzpatrick, a guy intellectually very smart, Harvard guy. But you ask him to throw the ball out, you're asking for trouble because he forces a lot of throws.
All right, let's get to Carl Stevenson's question. With the new COVID rules, will they allow press in the locker room this season? I believe that has not been established yet. I know that media can now do interviews at training camp, right? Yes. They can do kind of one-on-one style interviews.
Yeah, the early word is I don't think they're going to be able to go in the locker room. That was what I'd heard. I don't know if that's definite yet, but that was the early word I've been getting. But the good thing is we'll be able to go to training camps. We'll be able to interview players after. That means I'll be able to go to all training camps this year. I cannot wait.
Right. I do know that I don't want to call them our union. We're not in a union, but our representation on that is the PFWA, Pro Football Writers of America, has been talking with the league. They recently had a conversation with the league, and I think that's what led to some of the easing of the media restrictions that are going on. And the vibe I got was that conversations will still continue. The ultimate goal is to get media back into the locker room. It may not happen, as you said, or that might be the prevailing thought right now. It might change 3 months from now. Who knows? We've got a lot, as you said before about Eagles cornerback situation. We got a lot of time left before the start of the season, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. The question, we had one question. Let me find it that I thought was interesting from our.
While you look for that, I'll tell our friends to check out our other friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you're looking to sell a car back, trade it in, used car, and get the most money, you've got to go to Sky Motor Cars. Visit them at skymotorcars.com. I'm telling you, they're paying the most amount of money right now on a trade-in. So hit them up, skymotorcars.com.
Yeah, there's a question on Bashaud Breeland. Here's the thing about Breeland. I could tell you the Eagles weren't involved. He got a really low-end deal, and I'll explain why.
He went back to the Chiefs, correct?
No, he went to the Vikings.
No? That's right, the Vikings, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, he complained about not getting a contract after he left. He went on Twitter, and I don't know what the hell he was talking about. He just put something out there, and then within a week he got a deal. He got a really low-end deal. No, I understand it's after the draft. His deal is 1 year for $3 million, and that's really what some teams see Steven Nelson getting $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson is probably a better football player than Breland. Breland has had some minor off-the-field issues in his career. Not old. I mean, he just turned 29 in January. He's a good player. $2 million of it is fully guaranteed at signing Breland's contract. The Eagles were not in on it, so Steven Nelson's the guy that they want, I'm told. But they have a number in mind, and I don't. Again, as I said before, they could have $15 million under the cap. They're not paying more than they think Steven Nelson's worth. It's kind of like when you go get a car, right? Let's say that you've got $100,000 in the bank. Then you got a new job. You're making $500,000 a year. Well, the car you were willing to pay $20,000 before. Are you going to spend $40,000 on it if that's what they're asking for? No. If you valued the car at $20,000, that's what you pay.
Right.
Why would you overpay for something? The Eagles don't believe that Nelson's worth more than $3 million, and that's kind of where it's at.
There you go. All right, let's finish it off with Aaron Puga, and he asks, this is a really good question. If Davion Taylor struggles this offseason again or proves to be still too raw, is there a chance you think the Eagles could cut him? There are no ties for him to this coaching staff, which is a valid point.
True. I know from what I've heard, they want to take a look at him. They're intrigued by him because the Eagles are going to be a nickel team, 4-2-5, so they want to see what he can do. But he's a guy that was severely overdrafted. This was a Jim Schwartz pick. Not that Schwartz made it, but Schwartz. This is a guy that Jim Schwartz wanted. Liked the player, and unfortunately, you and I knew this. He wasn't going to be ready. We knew he was going to. We had heard the two players who would not play as rookies were Kayvon Wallace, who didn't play, barely played, and then this kid. And I don't think that they would trade him, obviously, before they'd cut him. They want to see if they would obviously try to get something back for him. It's a good question. It's hard for me to answer, but I do remember, now this kid is a third rounder. Pumphrey was a fourth rounder. The coaches wanted Pumphrey off the roster after that first training camp because he was so bad. And because I got to tell you, if there would have been a revolt, if they cut Clement and kept Pumphrey,
that would have been bad.
Obviously, that would have been bad because he was a Super Bowl hero. And where would they be without Clement?
My God.
Think about that. But I could tell you, Clement was obviously a great find for Roseman and their personnel staff, and great job by Deuce Staley. But Pumphrey was so bad, and I'll never forget what someone at the Eagles said. He's small and he plays small. That's a little nugget for you, folks. If you ever hear a coach or a personnel executive or someone being quoted saying this running back is small and he plays small, he's probably not going to be very good.
Yeah, no, I remember too the famous quote when they drafted him and they're trying to spin everything positively was he's a little dog who plays like a big dog, but that pretty quickly morphed into he's a little guy Joe Douglas.
Oh, he didn't work out.
I mean, what do you expect the guy to say when the microphone? Right, they just drafted him that day.
But here's the thing, though. See what they thought, because he had put up so many yards at San Diego State.
Yep.
They thought he was going to be great because he was explosive. And that's the problem about sometimes when you watch tape. And I remember Bill Polian telling me, generally what you see on tape is what you get. But every once in a while, what you get on tape is not what you get when they're in your facility or on the field. And that was with Pumphrey, because Roseman and Douglas were aligned on that pick.
Right.
They liked Pumphrey. Look, you're not going to get him all right, but the sins of that 17 draft,
still hurting the team right now.
It's amazing how the 16 draft was historically great. You can't blame Roseman for Wentz. That's not his fault.
Right.
17 draft, that's his.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, I mean, I understand that Joe Douglas set the board, but he made the call. And
right.
I just don't understand how that could happen. So high and then so low. Anyway.
All right. So my thought process is, Adam, is that even if Davion Taylor, even if the coaches think coming out of camp that Davion is not a top 3 linebacker, but they want to keep 5, that he's probably got a better chance than maybe somebody else that we're speaking of in that 4 or 5 range. I don't know, like a Sean Bradley or someone else, because of special teams. I mean, at very least, you think that speed and athleticism can come in handy running down the field and tackling somebody. Now, if he's not a very good special team performer in preseason and training camp, well, then I think that you have to open up the idea that he's not going to make the team. But as you mentioned, there's a lot. It's hard to tell. But what helps him out is just that they're not extraordinarily talented at that position. So he could make it as a backup because the guys who are competing for these fourth and fifth jobs are not great as well. At least
right.
Not yet.
They
not proven anything.
Right. You're right. They knew that Davion Taylor was a project when they drafted him. It wasn't a surprise to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they really believed that he could be a good nickel linebacker down the line. And right now we're out of OTAs here. Aaron, you asked a great question, so we can move on here.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have to prove it that he needs to be on the football team. That would be my analysis. It's not a report; it's just an opinion.
Right.
He's got to show something. Just show something.
Gotcha. All right, let's close it out really quickly on this. King of Truth asks, is Gilmore a possibility for the Eagles? He's got a big contract, doesn't he? I mean, isn't this like
actually
the
Julio... No. The problem is you have to. No, he actually doesn't. He's only making $7 million this season.
Well, for the Eagles, that's kind of a big contract because then you
right, but it's not. It's not for one of the top three corners in the league. The problem is he's coming off a devastating knee injury. He tore his quad. That's actually worse than an ACL injury.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 31. See, here's the question. He turns 31 in the fall. Here's the question, and Jeff's talked about this before. You have to decide what you want to be. If you're trying to make a run to be a Super Bowl team, go get Stephon Gilmore. Because both of your starting corners will be over 30. If you just want to improve over last season, go get Steven Nelson and be competitive. Stephon Gilmore wants a new deal, okay? He has no guaranteed money left. That's been long gone. He's making just $7 million in base salary this season. He has per game roster bonuses totaling $500,000. The cash owed is $7.5 million, which is incredibly reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I would take it. That would put the Eagles over the cap, so they have to restructure. Right. And obviously, you could extend his contract and to make it palatable, but I don't see it. I wouldn't say never, but it doesn't seem to me like an Eagles type move here because he's coming out. The Eagles are trying not to bring in injured players.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're also not trying to add on more players over 30 that they would have to kick money down the road to because they can't afford it all this year. They'd have to, as you mentioned, that's a big part of it. If it was $3 million, then maybe, but it's 7.5. You said
7, yeah. The cash is 7.
They just don't have that right now. Now, maybe if Zach Ertz is off the roster, then we're starting to have the conversation. But I think they would still like to have a little money to roll over for next year because they're going to need some cap relief. So, I don't know. They'd also have to be convinced that, as you mentioned, that Steph is still Steph, and they're not trading for a player who's not. Not what he is.
Exactly, because then you have the Stacey Andrews situation all over.
Oh man, we don't want to go through that. That's all right. What a way to end this one, ITB TV, on a Stacey Andrews comment. But
I'll see myself out. See you, folks.
Thank you. Yes, never to be seen from again. All right, thanks everybody for watching. I want to thank our friends at Sky Motor Cars, our friends at Deal Dash, our friends at DraftKings, and of course Jimmy Hyden from Rebel Hill Productions for helping us throw this together. Thanks everybody for watching. For Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. You've been watching the Ask ITB live stream on Inside the Birds TV.